Teachers or professors of Reddit, what is the most elaborate cheating scheme you've stumbled upon? University of Florida circa 1985. Once a final began, the answers were posted across campus so you could grade your final and figure your grade. One fraternity had their pledges get the answers. They then used a Mr. microphone to broadcast them to brothers via FM Walkmans. This story couldn't be more circa 1985. Two girls wearing hijabs communicating with each other via Bluetooth during multiple exams. They've won. In high school a few times I would get purposefully caught not cheating. I would make it look like I was reading something hidden in my hand and inevitably the teacher would come over and inspect to not find anything. After that it was fair game. The teacher wouldn't check me again because she was embarrassed about falsely accusing me before. For a biology test, one student wrote down all of his notes on pieces of gum, then proceeded to eat the evidence one piece at a time. That's pretty good. Not a teacher, but during their standard grade exams some female students at my old school wrote answers and things to remember on their legs, then put tights and a skirt on over them. By pulling them tight they could see through and read the answers, and for obvious reasons no invigilator is going to come over, lift up their skirts and pull on their tights a bit. I should add, if you're thinking about doing this genius plan, just remember they did actually get caught and completely disqualified from all their exams. A student successfully obtains the answer key to a test. The student then makes a bracelet with beads, with colored beads corresponding with two letters. So if the answers on a test went A D C B A D, the bracelet might have a black bead to indicate the start, but then a red bead for A green bead for D, a blue bead for C, a yellow bead for B, another red bead for A, and finally a green bead for D. Unless you know the plan, it looks just like a beaded bracelet. It's not too elaborate, but I randomize all of the questions on my quizzes. I tell my students to take them alone. Every semester, I get quizzes and they have all the right answers in the wrong order. They work together and don't even take time to look at the questions. What was the most popular typeface of the 1960s? The French Revolution. The answer is Helvetica. Comic Son. I have kind of a cheating inception story. I had a CS professor who gave us a completely brutal take-home final exam. Much harder than the work we had been exposed to previously in class, and it was worth like 30% of the final grade. In desperation, I googled one of the questions to see if I could find any forum posts on similar problems. Instead, I ended up finding out that the teacher had lifted the final in its entirety from another university's website. That website also provided the answers to the questions, which I then lifted. I'm pretty sure the professor knew what I did, but couldn't call me out without exposing that she had lifted the exam from elsewhere, rather than writing it like she was supposed to. It was not so elaborate, but in my school, these kids would bring in camera pens and would take pictures of the tests, quizzes and later distribute them. The teachers didn't notice the students holding their pens high above their papers until about 2 weeks later. We had some quite oblivious teachers. For a college class here, girl got caught plagiarizing an online blog entry. Claimed it was a copycat virus that her computer had gotten and that it was being repaired and wouldn't happen again. When asked for proof, a response was given by a tech company that wasn't listed in the phone book and was using a Gmail account. When asked for a phone call, the technician said he would call when he was back from his vacation. He never called, so the academic dishonesty claim against the girl was escalated to the next level. The next day, we got an email forwarded from the wife of the technician to the student, with the wife claiming her husband had died of a heart attack coming back from vacation and that there was no way to access his client records. When we asked the student for the technician's name, she couldn't give it to us, and when we said we could not verify her story without a name obituary, we would proceed with the case. The next day, the local paper ran an obituary that she screenshotted and sent to us about a man who had died on vacation, with his body being donated to science. It was about 6 lines long and did not mention anything about family, funeral arrangements, etc. The newspaper was called to see if they would tell us who paid for it, which they originally would not, but once we explained the situation, they said if we could give the name of the person we suspected, they would give us a yes or no answer as to if they paid for the obituary or not. Turns out it was the student. I'm going to plagiarize this post and turn it into a movie. Had an exam worth 50% of our grade. Prof was quite strict about pencils, water bottles, etc. We asked her what the deal was and she regaled us with a story about a Chinese girl who wore a beautiful, long dress with Chinese writing all over her dress. Turns out the girl had sewn patches with the answers to the test onto her dress. Not 100% sure if it actually happened or just a deterrent for would-be cheaters. Exams are now taken naked. I've read of one scheme where a couple of band students got a copy of another class's multiple choice test. They put all of the correct answers into sheet music. They just made sure that paper was on top when they had to clear their desks. Cheat music. University teacher here. Undergraduates in the second year of their degree. To be honest, most cheating schemes are incredibly mundane and repetitive. Year on year, students tend to do the same sorts of stuff, with plagiarism outweighing all other cheating options by about 99%. Incidentally, if anyone's getting ready to start their first semester of university in the next 6 weeks or so, don't plagiarize. It's incredibly easy to detect with modern software, and almost always ruins your grade. Current teacher that has seen plenty of cheating. I've yet to have a student top mine from college. Had a monster paper due during my masters. I only got her about a third of the way done, so I printed it out and proceeded to throw it on the ground and step all over it. After class, I gave the paper to the department's secretary and claimed I saw it outside and recognized the professor's name on it. I hightailed it out of there before the professor could make it downstairs to claim it. 5 minutes later I got a call apologizing for the paper falling out of her stack and asking if I could bring in a new copy on Monday. Got an A. If a student did top yours you wouldn't know it. Just saying. I once caught someone copying their paper from 4 websites rather than just copying one. My friend sat behind me. If he needed an answer, he'd tap my back once with his pen. I'd touch the side of my head with my pen when I was ready to listen. He'd tap my back with the number of the question. For example, 25 would be 2 taps. Pause. 5 taps. I'd tap my head with my pen with the answer. For example, 3 taps was a C. If I didn't know the answer, I'd just scratch my head with my pen. If I needed an answer, I'd hold my pen to my head like I was thinking and he'd tap my back once when he saw me. I'd tap the question number against my head using the same scheme, and he'd tap my back with the number of the answer. Never got caught. Need answer for 99. Get answer for 88. Lost count. This is a pretty elaborate one that happened when I was a preschool aide. We had music class on Wednesday. The class was split in half. One group did an art project while the other went to music. This happened right before lunch and after nap. So one group would go to art before lunch and then wake up from nap and go to music. Well, one boy who we will call Music Hater, or MH, hate music, hence the name. His friend, who we will call Music Lover ML, loved music. So during nap time they switched clothes so MH wouldn't have to go to music. He woke up and ML could go to music twice. They thought that if they changed clothes we would think MH was ML. I let MH skip music and do art twice because I was just impressed that they were able to switch clothes without us teachers noticing. I loved how they thought switching clothes would be enough to fool the teacher. Good on you for being a good sport about it though. When I was a student, I would cheat during tests where we had to memorize entire paragraphs. Not sure what good that did. Basically, the day before, I will write the whole passage really hard on the pad of paper I will be using. Since I sit near the window, the light makes it easy to see the depression in the paper. I haven't worked on a class large enough, but I've heard tell of an Asian flying V. The name suggests it's more common among groups of students from countries with looser academic honesty codes. The smartest student sits in the front row of the auditorium. 2 more sit in the next row up to the left and right of the smartest. So as the smartest student answers questions, the dumber students sitting in a sightline can pass the answers back up the row. The name is freaking hilarious. I suck at stories, but I'll try anyways. In college I would work on things in a particular computer lab in the same building almost every day. Throughout the semester I noticed my professor of a different class, by different I mean one that didn't assign the work I was usually working on, would come in before every test and use the exact same computer to email a copy of the test to himself. Well, At this time I thought it would be cool to see if I could keylog his password, open his email, save the test, and then mark his email as unread. I had in my possession a hardware keylogger that I planned to put on the computer the day he would be using it and save the test. In the computer lab they had cameras, which I assume was to catch a thief of hardware. Well, I decided if they suspected someone tampering the computer they would check the tapes. So early in the semester I decided to use his computer and pretend having trouble with the keyboard I was using, walk behind it to the tower and adjust the cord to make it work again, and planted my device. I then used different computers every time I came in, but the day before the final, after he came in to transfer the test, I used that computer one more time and once again feigned concern that the keyboard wasn't working, grabbed my device, pocketed it, and continued to work for an hour. Later that night, I had a friend drive me around to find an unsecured Wi-Fi. Before we left the house I changed my hardware MAC address on my laptop, used a Baybones Firefox to ensure a minimal generic browser footprint, logged into his email, downloaded the test, and then marked it as unread. It worked and no one was the wiser, but looking back I can't believe I did it. Both of these stories are not so much elaborate cheats, but hilarious we thought you were cheating stories. 1. Had a student asking to go to the bathroom repeatedly during the exam. Tay followed student in to see what stall they were using, and when the student left, searched the stall for notes. Instead, found a bag of coke. Thought it might be a coincidence. Polled the student's exam afterwards and it made absolutely no sense. Student was doing lines during the exam and wrote perhaps the most insane thing I've ever read. 2. Student enters the exam with enormous margarine tub full of chili. At the time, students were allowed to bring food, not anymore. Professor gets suspicious and requests the student show us the chili to prove he has not hidden any notes or his words written the answers on the beans. Student sits down to complete the exam, only to realize they forgot to bring any spoon fork. Student spends 3-hour exam eating entire tub of chili with the 2 pens like chopsticks and finishes the exam on time. It was an incredible featuring to witness. Requested the prof provide bonus marks for sheer determination, but the request was denied. I used get my homework done by telling one group that I would do the first 6 questions while they do the last 6 questions, and then telling a different group that I would do the last 6 questions while they do the first 6 questions. When both groups were done, I would give my half to each of them and would just have to paraphrase all 12. Cheat the teachers and your classmates. For an assessment, I gave in an essay that wasn't complete but was what I had at the time, then went and spent the rest of the day completing it, found the teacher, apologized and said that I had accidentally given her a draft. I was a right nerd and got away with it without a problem. Your teacher knew. They were just looking for an excuse not to give you a bad grade. A few years ago in high school, I had long hair and listened to my iPod during every class. I had the cord run down inside the back of my shirt and I'd have one earbud in. I did this for 2 years and never got caught. One day I realized I could record myself and put it on my iPod. Brilliant. I passed my finals with that bad boy. In German class, most of our tests were vocabulary terms. My friends and I sat near the wall where there was a bulletin board. He would disguise the answers as the lunch menu or some other legit looking paperwork. Here's a good one. Professor prints out all 150 exams the day before test and leaves them on his desk accidentally. He suspects a student came in during office hours and stole an exam to fill in at home. Sure enough, he counts 149 exams instead of rewriting the entire test and cutting his losses. He goes to the paper cutter and chops off a 1/4 inch from the bottom margin of all 149 exams. When the test was over, he straightened the stack of exams and up pops the one that was stolen the day before. Well, he didn't get his PhD by being oblivious. That's seriously some smart thinking. Since No Child Left Behind went into effect, cheating by teachers on behalf of students would have to be the most elaborate cheating scheme I've stumbled upon. I can buy whatever I want except the thing that I truly want. Quality time with my parents #feature me.